The gates of the Adeyemi mansion had never opened for a woman like her before, and by the time the sun set that day, nothing in Kunle Adeyemi's carefully guarded world would ever be the same again. The morning sun spilled gold across the compound of the Adeyemi estate as Temiloluwa Fashola gripped the steering wheel of the gleaming black Range Rover, her knuckles pale with nerves. She was 26, sharp-eyed and desperate, the kind of desperate that comes from watching a mother's hospital bills pile up faster than a daughter's prayers could pay them off. She had lied on her application, claiming years of experience she didn't have, because the salary offered by the Adeyemi family for a personal driver was more than she'd earn in 6 months selling fabric at Balogun Market. She needed this job the way a drowning woman needs air, and she was determined that no billionaire's son would see her sweat. Kunle Adeyemi stepped out of the marble-columned entrance that morning, dressed in a tailored navy suit, his phone pressed to his ear, barking instructions about a shipping contract in Singapore. He was 34, heir to one of Lagos's largest logistics empires, and utterly uninterested in the parade of drivers his father's estate manager kept hiring and firing. He barely glanced at Temiloluwa as he slid into the back seat, still talking, still distant, treating her as nothing more than a mechanism to get him from one meeting to the next. She started the engine, hands trembling, praying she wouldn't stall the car or take a wrong turn that would expose her inexperience and cost her everything. If you believe that kindness can change a life, and that everyone deserves a second chance no matter where they start, smash that like button, drop a comment below, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Whispering Tales Stories so you never miss what happens next. The first few weeks were a blur of near misses. Temiloluwa memorized every pothole on the Lekki-Ipi Expressway, every shortcut through Victoria Island traffic, staying awake at night studying road maps on her cracked phone screen while her mother coughed in the next room of their one-room apartment in Ajagunle. Kunle remained cold, correcting her routes with clipped irritation, complaining to his assistant that the new driver seemed distracted. But Temiloluwa never argued. She simply worked harder, arriving before dawn to polish the car until it gleamed, staying late without complaint, absorbing his sharpness like rain soaking into dry earth. The turning point came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Kunle's phone rang with news that made his face turn the color of ash. His younger sister, Edith, had collapsed at her university hostel in Ibadan. Traffic on the expressway was a wall of unmoving metal, horns screaming, the sun beating mercilessly down on frustrated drivers. Kunle, usually composed, began shouting at Temiloluwa to find a way through, panic cracking his voice for the first time she'd ever heard. Instead of panicking with him, Temiloluwa took a breath, cut the wheel sharply, and guided the Range Rover down a route she'd scouted weeks earlier during her sleepless nights of study. A back road through Mo that most drivers didn't know existed. They arrived at the hospital nearly 40 minutes faster than any other route would have allowed. Adeyemi survived a case of severe dehydration and exhaustion from overworking herself during exams, but in the trembling hours in that hospital corridor, Kunle saw Temiloluwa differently. He saw the young woman who had stayed calm when he unraveled, who had known his city better than he did despite never having ridden in the front seat of privilege. He asked her quietly why she'd studied that route. She told him the truth, that she'd been terrified of failing, of losing this job, of disappointing a mother who believed her. Daughter had finally found a way to lift them out of poverty. For the first time, Kunle really looked at her, and something in his chest shifted like a door creaking open after years of rust. From that day, small things changed. Kunle began greeting her by name instead of silence. He asked about her mother's health. He noticed the way she hummed old Yoruba songs under her breath when she thought he wasn't listening, the way her eyes lit up talking about her dream of one day owning a small transport business of her own. He found himself lingering in the car longer than necessary, inventing reasons to ask her opinion on things, discovering that beneath her quiet professionalism was a woman of fierce intelligence and unshakable resilience. And Temiloluwa, despite every warning bell in her mind reminding her of the impossible gulf between a billionaire's son and a market trader's daughter, felt something dangerous and warm blooming in her chest whenever he smiled at her, which he did increasingly, and only for her. But Lagos society is a merciless watchdog. and whispers travel faster than any expressway shortcut. Kunle's father, the formidable Chief Adeyemi, summoned his son one humid afternoon and demanded he end whatever foolishness was happening, with the driver reminding him of his responsibilities, his family's reputation, and the marriage already being arranged with the daughter of a senator. Kunle's mother wept, begging him not to shame the family. Under this mounting pressure, Kunle did something unforgivable. He told Temiloluwa, coldly and without explanation, that her services were no longer needed, and that she should collect her final payment from the estate office. He couldn't bring himself to look her in the eye as he said it, and she left without a word, swallowing her heartbreak, the same way she'd swallowed every disappointment life had handed her. Weeks passed. Temiloluwa returned to selling fabric at the market, her heart heavier than before she'd ever known what it felt like to be truly seen by someone. She told herself she'd been foolish to dream beyond her station, foolish to let herself hope. But Kunle, in the mansion that now felt like a beautifully decorated prison, could not eat, could not sleep, could not sit through a single business meeting without his mind drifting to her laughter, her steady hands on the wheel, the quiet strength that had somehow become the compass of his entire world. He realized that all the money, all the empire waiting to be inherited, meant nothing if it cost him the one person who had ever loved him for who he was rather than what he owned. He arrived at Belogan Market on a bright afternoon, dressed simply, without bodyguards, without the trappings of his name, and found Temiloluwa arranging bolts of Ankara fabric on her stall table. She froze when she saw him, certain she was imagining things. In front of stunned traders and curious onlookers, Kunle apologized, not with grand gestures, but with raw, trembling honesty, admitting his cowardice, admitting that he had let fear of his father's disapproval outweigh the truth of his own heart. He told her that she had taught him more about courage and integrity in a few months than his privileged life ever had, and that he wanted to build a future with her, regardless of what society whispered. Temiloluwa, tears streaming down her face, asked him if he understood what he was truly choosing, a life that might mean scandal, disinheritance, a battle against everything his family expected. Kunle took her hands, calloused from years of honest work, and told her that he had already lost the version of himself that valued reputation over love, and he never wanted that version back. Chief Adeyemi, upon seeing his son's resolve and the quiet dignity with which Temiloluwa carried herself when they visited him together weeks later, slowly softened, moved not by wealth or status but by the evident depth of their devotion to one another. If this story touched your heart even a little, please don't scroll away without letting us know. Like this video, leave a comment and share it with someone who still believes love can find a way through impossible odds. Because stories like this deserve to be seen by more hearts out there. Before you go, drop the word believe in the comments if you feel that true love and second chances are still possible in this world, no matter where two people start from. Months later, Temiloluwa stood in the same compound where she had once trembled behind the wheel of a stranger's car, no longer a driver, but a woman about to become part of the very family that had almost turned her away. The gates that had once seemed impossibly tall now felt like the entrance to a life she had never dared imagine, proof that kindness, patience, and quiet strength could open doors that money alone never could. As the golden Lagos sun set behind the mansion that evening, Kunle held her hand and whispered that she hadn't just driven his car, she had driven him back to the man he was always meant to be, and together they walked forward into a future neither privilege nor prejudice could ever take from them again.